This week we're talking about rivers, and in this video I'm going to tell you about something you might not think about when you think of a river, and that's the plants that live in it. I'm here at the River Itchen, which is one of the UK's famous chalk rivers. There are only 200 rivers like this in the entire world, and 170 of them are in England. Chalk rivers are really famous for their trout and salmon, and we've actually just seen one jump out of the water. But these fish might not come to these rivers at all if it weren't for the huge number of aquatic plants living in them. But what kind of plants live in rivers, and why are they so important? Submerged plants live under the water, and there are two types of submerged plants. There are plants that live completely under the water, they're called isoetids, and plants that send their flowers up to the surface on shoots so that they can be pollinated. They're called elodeids. This water crowfoot, this dark green thing here, is an elodeiid. Submerged plants provide habitat for fish and insects. They also inject oxygen into the water when they photosynthesize. And they help to trap sediment that's coming downstream, which means over time they can actually change the shape of the river. Emergent plants are plants that stick up out of the water. Quite often these are one of three things. They're either sedges, rushes, or grasses. You can tell them apart by looking at the cross-section of their stem. So sedges are quite often triangular, rushes are round, and grasses are quite often have hollow stems with joints up them. There's a little rhyme to help you remember this. Sedges have edges, rushes are round, grasses have joints that help them bend to the ground. Emergent plants are great places for fish and insects to hide from predators. Their roots also help to hold riverbanks together, stopping them from eroding into the river. Floating-leaved plants, as you can probably work out, have leaves that float. Some of them send roots down to the bottom of the river, and these can have quite big leaves, think water lilies. Others are completely free-floating and have really, really tiny leaves like that duckweed just down there. Floating leaf plants are important because they provide shade and shelter, which is one of the reasons frogs love them. By far the smallest plant you find in rivers are algae. A single algae is made up of just one cell, and most of them are so tiny you can't see them. Some of them, called diatoms, make protective cell walls out of glass, and when you look at them under a microscope, they're really quite intricate and beautiful. Some algal cells clump together in chains, and that's what makes up that kind of green slime that you quite often find near the water. So this stuff here is actually a plant. In healthy rivers like this, there's a good balance between the different kinds of plants, all providing different habitats. But in some rivers, we get nutrient pollution. Nutrients are contained in things like agricultural fertilizers and sewage. When they get into the water, the algae grow really, really quickly and block the light from getting to the bottom. When that happens, you get fewer submerged plants and more floating plants. At that point, there's less oxygen going into the water, and there's also fewer habitats for insects and fish. So, plants might not be the first thing you think about when you think of rivers, but actually they're a really, really important part of the ecosystem. Thanks for watching today. I hope you've learned a lot about plants and why it's important that we protect our pondweeds. Don't forget to check out the activity cards, and I hope you have a great wild day.